Alright everyone, welcome to the next episode of Bike Talk here with good music fan, the Rabid Cyclist coming at you. I told you last episode that we would do something about bike repair. Now to a limited extent we are going to talk about that. We're also going to be talking about a few other things. But anyway, onto the bike repair. Most of you know what this is. You don't? Okay, then this video series is probably for you. It's tires. It's a bike tube. Now there are there are three types of inflation systems for bike tires. I'll say they're conventional tube, like we all know and love. Tubeless for, I believe those are mainly mountain bikes, but I hear some road bikes are starting to use them now. And another one where the tube and tire, I believe it's called a tubular. I mean, if someone has the accurate definition, please shoot me a link and let me know. Where the tube and tire are all one item. You just put it on, inflate it a little bit, you know how it works. Anyway, excuse me for a minute. Okay. Now, most of you to patch have probably seen patches like this. They're not that much, and that's for a fairly big hole. I mean, I got a patch kit that was probably not the best for my particular application. Most of you've seen patches like these, right? They usually come little hideous tube of glue, which reminds me I gotta get some new ones here. They will usually come with some sort of scuffing surface or two, a fairly heavy-duty grit sandpaper, and a tire scuffer. At least that's what I think this thing's called. Mine also came with a rather odd little thing, a little rubber. Must not have it in here, but a little rubber noodle-looking like thing. I have no idea what it's for. If any of you have seen it, I'm going to put a picture up here to show you what that noodle is. If any of you know what it is, please let me know what it's used for, because when I asked on bike forums what it was for, or rather when my wife asked, there were a lot of conflicting interpretations. There were a lot of conflicting definitions for it. Some said it was just to spread glue around. Others said it was to push in a hole. Okay. I don't know. That's why I'm talking to you. Anyway, on with the bike room. Let's say, Mr. Tube here, you've been out and about and you notice that about halfway to your home, you've got about 100 yards or so, your tire's flat. Well, okay, so you get off, not to walk it, or you're way out in the middle of nowhere. I mean, the closest help is probably that gas station way about a mile and a half that way. Either way, you're kind of pinched. So what do you do? Well, you have options. There are two types of patches. There are the glued kind, where you peel the little edge off, slap it on there. And we'll do this right now. You want to take your glue, and the only reason why I stepped was to make sure it was actually still viable. If it feels kind of mushy and hard to push on the tube, if you don't get any sort of strong chemical smell, odds are your tube's dead. But take this, and let's just say our tube is right there. You put on a tiny little bit, just like that, and you rub it around. Now, I personally am of the old school of where you vulcanize the patch. Now, by that I mean you set fire to it. I'm not going to do it indoors because it would probably set off a smoke alarm and most likely irritate my cat, who is right over there. Say hi, sweet pea. Okay, but anyway, you would let the glue dry, and depending on how certain you want to be, you would want to put another layer on. This is after you've scuffed the area with either the sandpaper or the tire scuffer, to make sure that the patch and the glue will actually adhere strongly to the tube. Now, my method of doing it, like I said, I would set fire to it, put another layer on, set fire to it, then put the patch on, and then do the following. Let's say, what do I have? Okay, let's just say that this was a bit bigger, and not as narrow, and you would just use this and roll it over the patch, making sure you've got it, just rub it in there really good. This has 2 points. It has the effect of kneading the surface molecules of the patch into the surface molecules of the tire, or of the tube, I mean. This also is a good way of getting rid of any potentially trapped air bubbles that may be in there, which may give a way for air to come out. I've seen this happen. My normal method of doing it is just to apply the patch and hold like this for about 10-15 minutes. I've only ever had to patch a tube once going to work or school or anything like that, and they were content with the opinion, okay, you had to wait a few minutes. Well, don't you have glueless patches, which is the other type of patch we're going to talk about? I told them flat out, no, I don't. Everything I've read over the last 15 years, patches and glueless patches, well, especially glueless patches, come in, God, how can I put it? You either love them or hate them. I hate them. I know some people have used them for ages, and they're okay for quick, dirty, get me home so I can patch it properly. I never even had them last that long. Maybe it's just how I did it. I would pull the tire up, find the hole, patch, put it back in there, pump up. If I was lucky, it would last 150 yards or so. Never did work right. Also, if you put a patch on something and the patch begins to leak, and you know it does because maybe there's slime shooting out of it, what have you, do yourself the favor. I found this out the hard way. I had a tube that kept having a flat in one spot. I got home, I took the two patches that I put on it off, and this is the one time I didn't follow my own advice and thoroughly worked the patch into the tube so it would sit properly and also squeeze out any potential air pockets. Well, I did, and the slime would come out, and because of how slime works with tires and all that, it doesn't like to play too well with patches. Now, I do run slime tires. I know I have a few friends. My good friend Aaron is of the environmentalist, I want to recycle as much as I can camp. I myself am of that way too, but also I like slime in my tires for the simple fact that, unlike some, when I get I get a flap, I hear that. I would rather have to go like I did here just this last summer. I got a flat just as I was coming off of the Jordan River Trail up here on 7th North, and decided I'd go home rather than ride the full run for the trail that day. I had to stop and air up my tire 4 times to get me home. Now that was with slime. Now without it, I would have had to have walked or pulled over to the side of the road, found a safe enough spot to take my bike apart. This was one of the few times when I didn't have anything on me, and all I was doing was checking to make sure the tires I'd put on were good. You might think that I let something get in there. I didn't. Turned out what had happened, I'd gone over a piece of wire. I didn't know it until I took the tire apart, and I got home, and it was a super thin piece of wire. It looked, honestly, no thicker than the needles I used to inject my insulin with. But it managed to wiggle its way up there, and it just kept leaking. Without the slime in there, it would have completely drained there, but it wouldn't have held pressure long enough to go a few hundred yards and then stop, pump up, and go again. So, that's my take on, glueless patches, tires, slime, in general. Alright, friends, sorry about that. There's a slight glitch with my video editing software. If it gets past 9 minutes, as you can tell by my previous videos, the sound and video both go out of sync. So I've decided just to break this up into 8-second or 8-minute marks and go from there. The last segment I did, I was talking to you about my reasoning for why I use slime. There are actually some different variations on slime, and some of these may work to your advantage, some may not. I'll put the link down in the comments section, and I'll even flash it up on here so okay, go down here, look for link. Other than that, tires do come in a variety of thicknesses. Now, I have here my old bike tire. I don't know how well that's going to look up, but as you can see, from where my fingers are to the very top of it, it gets thicker. Well, this was one of those puncture-resistant tires. It works very well. And yes, I did cut up my old tube, so I had a supply of emergency patches. Now, these may not look pretty. In fact, riding home, you may feel a distinct ka-thud, ka-thud, ka-thud as that little bolt keeps hitting the concrete. If it's the only choice I got between using that type of a patch for a temporary repair to get me home, or walking 5-6 miles in crappy weather or through a bad neighborhood, I'm sorry, I'll put up with ka-thunk, 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 ka-thunk. To me, it's not a huge issue. I know some who do. Now, as far as carrying inflation gear, you do have a couple of options. You can either use a CO2 inflator. I don't use them, but not for reasons a lot of people would think I do. I dislike the fact that the cartridges are a little on the heavy side, and yes, I'm an idiot who carries a full-blown floor pump with him. How can they be heavier? Well, it's the simple fact that if I go anywhere, I take that off. Some thieves will actually come up, jiggle the little bag you've got under your seat, which carries your, like your inflator, your spare tubes, whatnot. They see that, they'll take it. They could steal anything. It's my speed gauge. It sits right on the bar. They can take it off. So I'd rather not. I'd rather take the floor pump with me, even if I have to stick it in the back seat. I don't care for frame pumps. Frame pumps are a nice idea, but realistically, I'd rather have something that I can put the pump on the floor, connect the hose to the valve stem right there, and then pump away at it. Frame pumps, you basically got to put it on there and pump away at it and pray that you don't put so much stress on the stem right here that it cracks it. Now, most people who have played around with tires and all that know that this part here is molded in with a very thick layer of rubber already in the part. Before it goes into the mold, these come from the factory, wherever they're made. And I don't know if you can see that, but it's kind of got like a raised disc. They put that in the mold, close it up, shoot the rubber in, out comes the tire. That being said, cracks around the stem, which every time I've seen them are usually right around here. Don't happen that often. They do happen. 9 times out of 10, it's because you probably got a friend, and you've probably seen this, where sticking out of the rim, the stem's like this. Well, that's not good. Stem should be straight up. Alright? That's just how it is. If it breaks or does something bad, that's your damn fault. Not mine, not anyone else's. A word of caution, some people think, I don't need to put that little cap on there. Yeah, you actually do. Let's say you notice that your tire's a little mushy, and for lack of a better word, maybe it is. Maybe a little bit of air got out. I mean, air will leak out of these things over time. This is not a solid air impenetrable membrane. Air molecules will escape off. Now, you may not have noticed it when you went your ride, but you decide, okay, I'll pump it up anyway. What happens is, without that little cover on there, little rocks and bits of dust can get in there and keep the stem from fully seating, preventing that air sound you just heard. That'll give you a constant slow leak. Now, there are valve core removers, which, hang on, which I'm hoping you can see right there. That little bit there in the center is the actual valve core. Now, you reach in with the tool, turn it righty-tighty, lefty-loosey. Some Italian tires and I want to say German tubes, sorry, Italian tubes and German tubes, maybe the exact opposite. Like how here in America, where everyone drives on the right and passes on the left, or in England, it's drive on the left, pass on the right. It's possible they may be that way. So, just be advised. But they do have tools to pull those out. Okay. Next part. What else was I going to say? Oh, yeah. A word on tire liners. Now, tire liners come in basically one of two options. You have fairly thin plastic-like material that fits around the tire, or the inside of the tire, and then you've got like a kind of for lack of a better way to say it, like just a floppy slab of jello almost that wraps around the inside of the tire. Both have their advantages and disadvantages, and they tend to cancel each other out in the long run. The one thing I do advise, though, if you get one and you're running with these kind of tubes, or even puncture-resistant ones, there is a third type of tube that my good friend Erin runs with, and I want to get some more information from her before I pass it on, and I'll post that as an addendum here. It's very, very thick. It's very hard to get them up, but she runs with them anyway, just to forestall the possibility of having a flat, which is a good idea. I did the same thing, more or less. I put puncture-resistant tubes and tires and slime and tire liners into my daughter's bike. Now, did that help? Not one damn bit. She still got a flat. Where? On the side of the tire. where the thick anti-thorn part wasn't so anti-thorn thick. So, but when those tire liners are actually put in the right way, there is just a small possibility for them to flex and rub and cause a rubbing tear, puncture tear. I'm not sure the word I'm looking for here is, but it is possible. Now, I would like to point out that this particular brand of tire liner I was using has been discontinued. I'm not sure if it was taken off the market because they had something better or if they were getting complaints, but when I tried looking for it online, I saw nothing but complaints about it. Now, I personally didn't have a problem with it. Like a lot of people said, oh, Windows 98 SE was just a crash-happy operating system. You know, I ran with that until finally Microsoft, back in like 2004 or 5, something like that, stopped supporting it. Then I had to grudgingly go to Windows XP. Well, anyway, so forth and so on. You know, your mileage on something was different, but apparently a lot of people didn't like this type of tire liner. Okay, there is another type of tire liner you could do. I've seen it. I've actually got it in my flat repair kit, although I am willing to use it in an emergency, but I'd rather not put it on there anyway. It's basically a tube like this, possibly a little bit wider, cut in half so that you basically, this part of the, like this line right down here, from there up to the top of the stem, that part's been completely cut off and thrown away. It's the bottom part. Will that stop a tube from getting punctured? Probably not. It's just basically adding 2 thicknesses of inner tube. But, you know, it might. It might stop that little piece of wire from getting in there, or make it so that the wire is barely coming into contact with your tube and giving you a very slow leak, enough to get you home. So, that's anyway is my theory on that. Hang on. Okay, well, we've covered tubes, you know, slime, tire liners, inflation gauges, or inflators, you know, whether it's a CO2 cartridge or a floor pump of some sort. Another thing I would like you to take a moment and give some consideration, because it is going to affect you. What kind of brakes do you use? Are you using disc brakes or rim brakes? Now, disc brakes, as a general rule, won't cause a rim to overheat. It is probably much more likely that whatever heat they're going to generate is going to overheat either A, the brake caliper, or B, migrate down to the hub and cause the oil to boil off, lock up, and you have an accident. Highly unlikely, yes, I know. Theoretically, it's possible. With rim brakes, on the other hand, you've got a whole new set of problems. Now, as far as, say, running down hills or long periods or braking constantly and hard without locking up your tires, you're going to generate a lot of heat, friction. And on rim brakes, that's got nowhere to go except one direction, into the tube, into the tire. And if it gets too hot, you can suffer an explosive blowout, like in my last video I showed you. Disc brakes, on the other hand, they have the same problem as car brakes. They lose their effectiveness. You just got to stop and wait. Let them cool off. If you're really fussy about it and you happen to have it on hand, one of those little cans of compressed air, and you just shoot that all over. I mean, yeah, you're screwing up the environment while you're doing it, but if you're really super desperate to get going and you want your brakes to work, do that. Under no circumstances do you throw water on either a hot rim or a hot rotor. It will crack, or it will warp it to where it's no longer working effectively. All right, you know, that's just about it for this time. I was going to put up an interview with a good friend of mine named Aaron, who has been a longtime cyclist and cycles predominantly for health, but is, as you will see in the interview that I will be posting here soon, is more of an environmentalist than anything else. And bicycling is a great environmental way of, you know, being a responsible adult, and at the same time, you know, going to where you've got to go. Now, I was going to actually interview it with a digital audio recorder I had, 2 of them actually. The problem is the battery in one is hardwired, and although it worked fine when I plugged it into my deck, or my computer here, it wouldn't hold a charge. Finally, I managed to get the diagnostics to cough up an error code, went to the website. Well, it turns out this particular error code means battery dead, needs to be replaced. I contacted them, it's still under warranty. I sent it off. and they're going to reimburse me the cost of shipping because the one shipping label thing that the RMA whatever that I had, I lost. So they're just going to reimburse me the cost of shipping, and then they'll send it back. The other one takes a specialized lithium-ion battery that I have been looking for and can't find. They're about $40 a pop. I've even thought about just checking on eBay for buying another 2 or 3 of these these recorders and going and heading on that way, but I can't. No one, if anyone's got them, they're desperately to keep a hold of them. But I did find out something. I can take my video camera, record it, separate the audio and video. I don't have a problem with showing my friend Aaron or anybody else that I interview, but from a legal standpoint, audio is much easier and much safer to post online than video is. You're not showing possibly my friend Aaron's face, and maybe she's got those, very fancy, very posh earrings. Well, someone from the company that makes those, we didn't say they could use that, and they could say, well, what are you going to do on a video recorder? Seriously. So probably here in the next week or 2, I will get in touch with her again. We will redo the interview that we did on paper. I will do it as an audio track and just upload it, and there'll be pictures of various bikes and whatnot. Okay? Another bike type that I would like to talk about more now is velomobiles. Now, velomobiles are, as I said in my previous video, an enclosed or semi-enclosed bike where either 40 to as much as 90% of the rider is covered by an aerodynamic, or at the very least some sort of covering around them, with usually only the head sticking out above this. There are some designs where the rider is completely enclosed, and there are others, if you call that a velomobile, fine. To me, it just looks like something with an aerodynamic skin stretched over it, like a sock. The particular model I am saving for, I'll put in the link. The reason why I want this particular one is at the time I was thinking about doing a cross-country trip, and this was about 8 years ago. Life gets in the way, family, whatnot, things just kind of get put on the back burner. Well, the one thing that has bothered me about biking is not so much sitting in an upright seat. Yes, that would suck. I'd deal with it. I hate getting wet. I hate having water splash on me. I don't like wearing a lot of clothing where, well, they say you can buy clothing that'll breathe, it'll keep the water off you, but you'll be able to breathe. No, I don't think so. I think I'll probably still sweat to death, and it'll just make me stink. Well, this particular bike, and I'll put the link in the comments section, has enough air moving around it, just on the few videos I've heard online, or on YouTube about it. Oh, it's awesome. It's really good stuff. On there, I have since done research. There are other models of velomobiles that are nearly fully enclosed or are fully enclosed, but I don't particularly like how they're styled. It's not saying I wouldn't buy one, and I'm not going to say that, I hate it. I recommend you don't. All I'm going to do is put up the link for mine and a link to about 3 or 4 others. Let you folks be the judge. All right? I really don't have a problem with doing any of it. I just like that particular design, and I think you'll see why. So, anyway. That's it for this episode of Bike Talk. It's still a bit cloudy today. I was going to try and get some mileage in, but my aversion to getting wet, notwithstanding, it is a little on the cold side. So, all I'm going to say is this is a good music band, the Rabid Cyclist, saying, be safe out on the road, look over your left shoulder, God us bless. Thank you.